M-Day, The Diary of Alex Wren. M-7, I woke up to a quiet, ordinary day. The rain ticked against the window and the heating clicked on just before breakfast, a comforting routine. But something felt odd. Scrolling through Twitter after breakfast, I stumbled on a post about military activity at some observatories. Just a whisper, really, but enough to pique my curiosity. Later, I came across a thread discussing a celestial anomaly seen near the horizon. There were even grainy images of a bright streak in the night sky, but no official statements. Curiosity turned into unease as I read more. Some posts claimed the government had mobilized resources for undisclosed reasons. One user shared a screenshot of a leaked internal memo mentioning public contingency plans. It seemed like nonsense, but the tone felt serious. It's probably nothing, I told myself, shutting my laptop. But I left the curtains open that night, staring at the sky until sleep claimed me. M-6. It didn't take long for people to start whispering at work. Jess, who's always in the know about everything, said her brother in the RAF had been sent back to base with no explanation. "They've grounded the jets," she said, her voice low. "Something big is happening." The news channels remained silent about any big events, but a few obscure websites were buzzing. One article speculated that a meteor was on a collision course with Earth. Another dismissed the claim as fear-mongering, insisting it was a harmless pass. That evening, I went to Tesco to pick up dinner. The shelves weren't empty, but there was a noticeable dent in essentials. Long-life milk, canned goods, bottled water. I overheard a couple debating whether they should head inland. "Just in case," the woman whispered. When I got home, Mum was watching the evening news, but it was business as usual. Politics, the economy, a feature on rising energy prices. Nothing about meteors or military mobilizations. If something was coming, they weren't telling us. M-5. The first cracks in the facade appeared today. A few local radio stations broke from their usual programming to reassure listeners about an upcoming celestial event. It was a brief announcement, clearly scripted. A large meteor will pass safely over Earth and land in the Atlantic. There is no cause for alarm. But online, things were spiraling. A supposed leak from a UK government report described an impact zone somewhere in the mid-Atlantic, with projections of massive tsunamis along the coasts of Europe and North America. It sounded fake, but the post gained traction quickly. That evening I looked at the sky again. It seemed darker than usual, the clouds thicker, heavier. I wondered if it was my imagination. Maybe I just needed sleep. M-4. Today was chaos. By now, everyone had heard the rumors. The streets were alive with tension, people lining up at petrol stations and supermarkets. The news still downplayed everything, but the BBC couldn't ignore it anymore. One scientist gave an interview saying the meteor posed minimal risk, but his face told a different story. I met Mark for lunch, and he said he'd heard about people leaving coastal cities. "Cornwall's packed with cars heading north," he said. "If it's nothing, why are they running?" M-3. The Prime Minister spoke today. He insisted there was no need for panic, but the tone of his voice said otherwise. He confirmed the meteor's trajectory, said it would land in the Atlantic, but at a safe distance. Still, the panic deepened. Shops were looted overnight. People crowded petrol stations, some paying, some not. I filled our car's tank just in case, though I had no idea where we'd even go if things got worse. Later, I noticed a dull orange glow on the horizon. It was faint, like a distant fire. M-2. The government issued another statement, this time through emergency channels. It advised essential preparations for potential disruptions. Social media was ablaze with rumors of coastal evacuations in France, Spain, and Ireland. Some said the US was mobilizing ships and aircraft, though no one could confirm it. At home, we packed what we could. Non-perishables, first aid kits, blankets. The air felt heavier than ever. It smelled burnt, almost metallic. M-1, the meteor is expected tomorrow morning. No one believes the government's reassurances anymore. We've decided to stay put. The roads are too dangerous, and it's unclear where would even be safe. The sky has taken on an eerie greenish hue. Birds fly in frantic circles before vanishing into the distance. The air feels electric, like the moments before a thunderstorm. This might be the last entry I write for a while. M-Day. It happened at 10:42 a.m. The ground shook violently, knocking books off shelves and smashing glass. The air turned thick with ash and dust almost instantly, dimming the light outside. It wasn't just a tremor, it felt like the earth itself was groaning. The sound was deafening, a mix of thunder and an unholy roar. I looked outside and saw neighbors running, some screaming, others clutching children. We turned on the radio. The meteor had struck the mid-Atlantic, creating a shock wave that radiated across continents. A tsunami had already devastated the coasts of Portugal and Ireland. Southern England was inundated, with parts of London reportedly underwater. The ash started falling by night. Tiny grey particles coated everything like snow. It smelled acrid, sharp, and breathing felt harder. We sealed the windows with tape and towels, but it still crept in. M+1. The sky is gone. There's no other way to describe it. The ash is so thick it blots out the sun. It's bitterly cold, and the wind carries the smell of burnt earth. It's impossible to tell the time anymore. Everything is a grey haze. We tried the radio again. A scratchy, faint broadcast said that the meteor's impact created a crater nearly 2 miles deep in the mid-Atlantic, but that's hard to believe. The resulting tsunamis obliterated much of the UK's southern coast. Cities like Plymouth, Portsmouth, and Brighton are gone. London is partially submerged, with survivors reportedly fleeing north. We're far from the coast, but even here, the ash falls relentlessly, turning streets into ghostly landscapes. The news advised staying indoors, but our supplies won't last long. No power, no running water. The temperature keeps dropping. We huddle together under blankets, rationing food and taking turns listening to the radio. The broadcasts are shorter now, with long stretches of static. There was a brief update about Europe. Catastrophic flooding along the western coasts, widespread evacuations inland. In the US, parts of New York are gone, washed away by a 100-foot wave. It's hard to comprehend. Mum's asthma is getting worse. Her inhaler is nearly empty, and I don't know how we'll get more. M+2. The ash is toxic. We ventured outside briefly to look for supplies, wrapping scarves around our faces, but it wasn't enough. The air burned our throats, and my chest still aches. The streets are almost unrecognizable, blanketed in grey. M+3. The radio brought worse news today. The impact has triggered what scientists are calling an impact winter. The ash in the atmosphere is reflecting sunlight away, causing temperatures to plummet. Crops will fail, they said. Food shortages are inevitable. We tried boiling some of the water from the tap. It tastes metallic, like the ash has seeped into everything. Mum drank some, but coughed for hours afterward. The nights are the worst. The cold seeps into the walls, and the silence is oppressive. I can hear Dad pacing in the living room, but there's nothing he can do. M+4. People are leaving the city. We've seen cars loaded with suitcases and families walking with backpacks, their faces grim. They're heading north, hoping to escape the worst of the ashfall. Dad thinks we should stay. Where would we go, he said. It's the same everywhere. But I'm not so sure. The ash seems thinner when the wind shifts, and I wonder if moving might give us a better chance. Mum is weaker today. She barely ate and spends most of her time sleeping. M+5. We made the decision to leave. We can't stay here, not with the air this bad and supplies running low. We packed what little we have into the car: food, water, blankets, and a first aid kit. Mum protested weakly, but she doesn't have the strength to argue. The roads are chaotic. Cars abandoned in the middle of the street, their owners nowhere to be seen. We'll leave at first light tomorrow, heading toward the countryside. M+6. We left Manchester before dawn. The ashfall is lighter in the countryside, but the air is still thick and bitter. We saw a convoy of military trucks heading south, their wheels churning up clouds of grey. No one stopped to explain. We passed through villages that looked deserted. Some homes had signs in the windows: "No food. Go away." Others had been ransacked, their doors hanging open. By nightfall, we found a small farm with an abandoned barn. It's not much, but it's shelter. For now, that's enough. M+7. We've settled in a refugee camp near Carlisle. It's overcrowded, cold and noisy, but at least there's food and water. The army runs the place, distributing rations and maintaining order. The ash hasn't stopped falling, and the temperature is still dropping. People huddle around makeshift fires, trading stories about what they've lost. One woman told me she walked from Brighton, leaving behind her home and her parents' graves. Some of the things she told are horrific. I can't write them down. There's talk of the government relocating to underground bunkers. No one knows how many survived down south, but the numbers can't be good. M+365, I think. I stopped counting when Mum died. The world is unrecognizable. The ash has started to settle, but the damage is done. Crops won't grow, and clean water is scarce. Most of the country is empty now, the cities abandoned or buried under layers of soot. Our camp has become a community of sorts. We farm what we can, using greenhouses to grow hardy plants. It's not much, but it's enough to keep us alive. Sometimes I think about the world before the impact. Sunny days, crowded streets, the sound of birdsong. It feels like another lifetime. M+, I don't know how many dot. The skies are finally clearing, and with them, a faint sense of hope has begun to stir. For the first time in years, we can see the sun again. The temperatures are rising, and green shoots are pushing through the ash-covered soil. Life, against all odds, is finding a way. Our settlement has grown into a small town now. We've built greenhouses to grow food, installed solar panels scavenged from abandoned cities, and even established a school for the children born after the impact. The rhythm of life is steady, if fragile. We farm, we trade, and we rebuild. But the world beyond our borders isn't as stable. Rumors of conflict have begun to trickle in with the rare travelers who make their way to our town. They tell of warlords rising in southern Europe, fighting over what little fertile land remains. In North America, fractured states are waging battles over dwindling freshwater supplies. One man who came through last month claimed to have seen entire armies marching under homemade banners, their leaders promising to reclaim lost territories. Even here, tensions are brewing. Two nearby settlements recently clashed over a shipment of medical supplies. One of our neighbors returned from a trade expedition to the north with news of skirmishes near Edinburgh, where a powerful group has declared themselves the Guardians of the Highlands, charging tolls for safe passage through their territory. We've started preparing just in case. Our community has formed a militia of sorts, mostly farmers and laborers armed with hunting rifles and makeshift weapons. I hate the thought of violence, but survival has hardened us all. The world is healing, slowly, but it's a different world now. Harsher, more desperate, and in many places, more dangerous. Sometimes I wonder if the meteor was just the beginning, not of an end, but of a new, brutal chapter for humanity.
Please like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this story.